Something strange happens when you stop trying. Not dramatically, not loudly, not with distance or coldness. Just stillness. You respond slower. You explain less. You stop filling silences. You stop proving your value. You stop chasing clarity. And suddenly, they lean in. Their texts get longer. Their tone softens. They initiate more. They become attentive. You didn't play games. You didn't ignore them. You didn't pretend to be busy. You just stopped being emotionally available on demand. And that shift changes everything. Because most people are used to energy they can move. They're used to reactions, used to reassurance, used to subtle validation loops. When you become internally steady, something in them activates. Not always attraction. Sometimes curiosity, sometimes insecurity, sometimes ego, but almost always pursuit. Here's the part nobody talks about. It's not silence that makes them chase. It's self-sufficiency. It's the absence of emotional hunger. It's the feeling that you are okay, with or without their attention. That energy is rare, and rare energy disrupts psychological comfort. People don't chase what is loud. They chase what feels unavailable to control. In this video, we're breaking down the psychology behind this quiet energy. Not tactics, not manipulation, but the deeper mechanism that activates pursuit when you stop reacting. Because when you understand this, you stop trying to make people chase, and you start becoming someone they can't easily move. If you value psychological depth over surface advice, subscribe to Quiet Power. We don't teach tricks here. We teach internal leverage. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the moment you stop chasing is the moment they start. Human beings are wired to respond to tension, not chaos, not drama. Tension. There is a difference. Tension is the subtle space between desire and certainty. It is the unanswered question, the unfinished sentence, the pause before resolution. It creates mental occupation, and mental occupation creates emotional investment. When you are overly available, emotionally, verbally, energetically, you remove tension. You answer before curiosity forms. You reassure before insecurity activates. You give before absence can register. And without absence, value is rarely measured. This does not mean you should become distant. It means constant emotional accessibility eliminates psychological movement. When someone knows they can access your attention instantly, without earning it, without risking anything, the nervous system relaxes. Relaxation is comfort. Comfort is safe. But comfort does not activate pursuit. Pursuit activates when something feels slightly out of reach. Not unreachable, not cold, just self-contained. Overavailability signals one thing beneath the surface: emotional dependency. Even if you don't feel desperate, constant responsiveness communicates that their engagement regulates you, that their replies affect your mood, that their validation stabilizes you. And once someone senses they can regulate you, the hierarchy tilts. Not consciously, but subtly. The person who needs less emotional reassurance holds more psychological leverage. This is why quiet energy shifts dynamics so quickly. When you stop responding immediately, you are not playing hard to get. You are signaling emotional independence. When you stop over-explaining your intentions, you signal self-trust. When you stop filling silence, you signal comfort with uncertainty. Uncertainty activates attention. Think about how the mind works. When something is fully explained, the brain closes the loop. When something remains slightly open, the brain continues scanning. It wants completion. If you are constantly explaining yourself, you close every loop. If you are constantly available, you remove mystery. If you are constantly affirming, you eliminate doubt. And without doubt, there is no mental friction. Friction creates heat. Heat creates movement. Most people who struggle to create attraction or influence are not lacking value. They are lacking containment. Their energy spills outward. They volunteer information. They reassure preemptively. They soften their edges too quickly. But when you contain your energy, something shifts. You respond, but not urgently. You share, but not excessively. You engage, but not anxiously. That subtle containment generates gravity. Gravity does not chase. It pulls. The psychology behind this is rooted in scarcity perception. The human brain assigns value based partly on availability. If something is constantly accessible, it is subconsciously categorized as abundant. And abundance reduces urgency. But when access is limited, not denied, just not guaranteed, urgency rises. You are not withdrawing to create scarcity. You are becoming internally fulfilled enough that you are not over-distributing your attention. And attention is currency. When you give it freely without calibration, it loses weight. When you give it deliberately, it gains impact. Here is where most people misunderstand quiet energy. They believe it means being emotionally cold or silent. It does not. Coldness repels. Silence without presence feels passive. Quiet energy is different. It is grounded engagement. It is eye contact without overexpression. It is listening without interrupting. It is speaking without over-justifying. It is existing without performing. That presence unsettles people who are used to reactive dynamics, because reactive dynamics are predictable. If I tease you and you defend, I feel control. If I withdraw and you chase, I feel desired. If I delay and you double text, I feel important. But if I tease and you smile calmly, if I withdraw and you continue your day undisturbed, if I delay and you remain emotionally unchanged, the pattern breaks. And when patterns break, curiosity begins. Curiosity is the beginning of pursuit. Over-availability kills this because it reassures too quickly. It prevents the other person from experiencing the subtle anxiety that precedes desire. Desire requires space, not distance. Space. Space allows imagination to work. It allows anticipation to build. It allows questions to form. When you become comfortable allowing space, instead of rushing to close it, you create a dynamic where the other person begins to lean forward. Not because you manipulated them, but because you stopped overextending yourself. The moment you stop seeking their response, to regulate your state, your energy changes. It becomes slower, heavier, more grounded. People feel that. They may not articulate it, but they feel it. And when they feel that you are not emotionally dependent on their engagement, their nervous system shifts from dominance to curiosity. Curiosity moves toward. Desperation pushes away. Quiet energy is not about making someone chase. It is about becoming so internally regulated that you are no longer unconsciously chasing. And when you stop chasing, the dynamic reverses. The shift does not happen in their thoughts first. It happens in their nervous system, before logic, before intention, before conscious decision. The human body is constantly scanning for patterns. Predictability equals safety. Familiar rhythms calm the system. Expected responses reduce cognitive load. When interactions follow known sequences, the brain conserves energy. But when a pattern changes unexpectedly, attention sharpens. This is not romance. This is biology. When you used to reply instantly and now respond calmly, without urgency, a micro-disruption occurs. When you once over-explained and now speak simply, without justification, another disruption occurs. When you once reacted emotionally and now remain steady, the pattern fractures. The nervous system notices immediately. Uncertainty activates alertness. Alertness increases focus. Focus increases investment. It's subtle, but powerful. Most people assume attraction begins with excitement. In reality, it often begins with disruption. Something shifts. Something feels slightly different. The mind leans in to understand why. If you have ever felt more interested in someone after they became slightly less available, you've experienced this mechanism. Your brain did not receive the usual feedback loop. A predictable reinforcement paused, and in that pause, attention intensified. This is where quiet energy operates. It does not create chaos. It creates ambiguity. Ambiguity stimulates the brain's pattern recognition system. When outcomes are no longer certain, the mind begins calculating possibilities. It fills in gaps. It imagines scenarios. It replays conversations. Mental replay is emotional reinforcement. When someone starts thinking about you more frequently, emotional weight increases, even without additional interaction. And this is the paradox. The less you try to occupy their mind, the more space you create for them to think about you. Over-pursuit suffocates mental space. Constant reassurance answers questions before they fully form. Immediate emotional transparency leaves nothing to interpret. But when you are self-contained, interpretation becomes necessary. Interpretation builds intrigue. Intrigue builds movement. There is also an ego component. When someone feels they understand their position with you, their ego relaxes. They know where they stand. They know how to influence outcomes. They know which behaviors get responses. When you subtly remove that certainty, the ego destabilizes, not dramatically, just enough. The ego dislikes losing position. It dislikes unpredictability in relational hierarchy. So it attempts to restore equilibrium. It engages more. It tests lightly. It increases attention. From the outside, this looks like pursuit. From the inside, it feels like regaining balance. The critical distinction here is intention. If you manufacture unpredictability to trigger this response, it feels artificial. The nervous system can detect forced detachment. Inconsistency without grounding creates anxiety, not attraction. But when your unpredictability comes from genuine internal regulation, it feels stable. There is a difference between being erratic and being self-contained. Erratic energy creates confusion. Self-contained energy creates gravity. Gravity pulls without chasing. Your nervous system plays a role in this too. When you stop seeking validation, your body relaxes. Your breathing slows. Your voice steadies. Your movements become deliberate. Microsignals change. Humans are hyper-attuned to microsignals. We read tone shifts, eye contact patterns, posture changes without conscious awareness. When your nervous system is no longer activated by someone's responses, you emit calm. Calmness in social dynamics often signals high internal status. It communicates that you are not dependent on immediate approval. It communicates abundance of options, even if no options are present. It communicates inner sufficiency. And sufficiency is magnetic. Because most people are operating from subtle scarcity, they want reassurance. They want confirmation. They want signs. When you are not seeking signs, you stand apart. Standing apart creates psychological contrast. Contrast captures attention. Imagine two lights in a dark room. One flickers constantly, demanding attention. The other glows steadily, unbothered. Over time, the steady light feels more powerful. It doesn't compete. It exists. Quiet energy is that steady light. The nervous system feels steadiness as safety. But paradoxically, it also feels steadiness as challenge. Because if you cannot be easily moved, the usual influence strategies fail. When influence fails, effort increases. Not always consciously, but instinctively. This is why people begin leaning forward when you lean back internally. Not physically distancing, not emotionally punishing, just not gripping. Gripping signals need. Release signals strength. The human psyche respects strength more than it admits. Even those who claim they want constant availability often respond more intensely to emotional independence. Because independence signals that connection with you is chosen, not required. Choice elevates value. Need diminishes it. There is another layer beneath this. When you stop reacting quickly, you create pauses. Pauses stretch moments. Moments become noticeable. Noticeability heightens awareness. Awareness increases significance. If every interaction flows predictably, significance blurs. But when rhythm shifts, when there is a pause before your reply, when there is a composed expression instead of reactive emotion, the moment feels heavier. Weight increases memory. Memory increases attachment, and attachment fuels pursuit. This entire process unfolds beneath conscious reasoning. The other person may believe they are suddenly more interested, more attentive, more invested. But what truly changed was dynamic equilibrium. You removed emotional urgency, and urgency transferred. This is the essence of quiet energy. It is not about withholding affection. It is about withholding anxiety. It is not about creating games. It is about ending internal chasing. When you no longer need to secure their engagement, your nervous system exits survival mode. Survival mode energy feels tense, grasping, slightly rushed. Regulated energy feels grounded, slow, intentional. Grounded energy shifts relational gravity. And gravity changes direction. The moment you stop trying to keep them, the system recalibrates. And in that recalibration, they move. There is a layer deeper than biology, deeper than nervous system responses, deeper than curiosity. It is the ego. Most relational dynamics are not built purely on affection. They are built on positioning, subtle positioning, invisible hierarchies, micro-calculations about who wants more, who needs more, who reacts more. The one who reacts more usually holds less power, not because power is cruel, but because reactivity signals dependency. Dependency creates leverage. Leverage invites control. Control does not always look aggressive. Sometimes it looks like playfulness. Sometimes it looks like teasing. Sometimes it looks like delayed replies. Sometimes it looks like emotional withdrawal. These behaviors test something very specific. Can I move you? If I tease, do you defend yourself? If I delay, do you double message? If I withdraw slightly, do you lean forward? If I show less interest, do you increase yours? These are not always conscious strategies. Often they are instinctive ego checks. The ego seeks reassurance of position. It wants confirmation that it can influence outcomes. The moment you stop reacting predictably, the test fails. If they tease and you smile calmly without overcompensating, the feedback loop breaks. If they delay and you continue your day undisturbed, the hierarchy blurs. If they withdraw and you do not chase, the ego feels uncertainty. Uncertainty destabilizes perceived control. And when control destabilizes, effort increases. This is why quiet energy often triggers pursuit in people who previously appeared indifferent. It is not always sudden attraction. Sometimes it is an attempt to restore influence. But here is the crucial distinction. If your quiet energy is authentic, it does not feel like a game. It feels like gravity. It feels like internal alignment. It feels unforced. Authenticity amplifies the effect, because authenticity carries weight. When you stop trying to manage perception, you stop leaking effort. Effort leakage is subtle but visible. It appears in over-smiling, in over-texting, in over-explaining, in subtle nervous energy that seeks validation. When effort disappears, your presence stabilizes. Stability unsettles those who rely on movement. Ego thrives on response. It feeds on reaction. It grows stronger when it sees its impact reflected back. But when it throws energy at you and receives composure in return, it encounters resistance without hostility. Hostility would give it something to fight. Silence would give it something to interpret as rejection. Composure gives it nothing to grab. And when the ego cannot grab, it reaches. Reaching looks like increased engagement, more attention, more initiative, sometimes even vulnerability. You did not provoke it. You simply removed emotional hooks. Emotional hooks are created when you attach your self-worth to external behavior. When someone feels your mood depends on their attention, they hold the hook. Remove the hook, and control dissolves. Without control, connection must become voluntary. Voluntary connection is stronger than controlled connection, but it requires equality. Equality requires internal strength. Most people unintentionally create imbalance by overinvesting too quickly. They reveal too much too soon. They chase reassurance before tension can form. They seek clarity before ambiguity has had time to breathe. Ambiguity is uncomfortable, but discomfort is fertile ground for attraction. When you allow ambiguity without panic, you demonstrate emotional resilience. Emotional resilience communicates abundance. Abundance communicates optionality. Optionality increases perceived value. The ego responds to perceived value with increased focus. It wants access. It wants position. It wants to be chosen by someone who does not need to choose. This is where many misunderstand quiet energy. They believe it is about acting uninterested. It is not. Acting uninterested is performance. Performance eventually collapses. Quiet energy is interested without attachment. It is engaged without dependency. It is present without pursuit. That combination is rare. Rare combinations create psychological impact. Consider this. When someone senses that your self-esteem does not fluctuate based on their behavior, they lose the ability to regulate you. The power dynamic equalizes. Sometimes it even reverses. Power reversal is destabilizing for the ego. If they were used to being the pursued, the sudden absence of pursuit feels like a drop in status. The ego compensates by increasing effort. But here is where your discipline matters. If you interpret their increased effort as validation and immediately return to over-availability, the dynamic resets. Quiet energy must remain consistent. Consistency builds credibility. Credibility builds gravity. Gravity pulls steadily, not sporadically. There is also projection at play. When you become self-contained, others project meaning onto your silence. They wonder what you are thinking. They question where they stand. They imagine scenarios. Projection deepens psychological involvement. The less you clarify unnecessarily, the more their mind works. And the mind working in your direction strengthens attachment. This does not mean you withhold clarity maliciously. It means you do not rush to soothe discomfort that is not yours. If they feel uncertain, you allow them to process it. If they feel curious, you let curiosity grow. If they feel challenged, you remain composed. That composure becomes the anchor in the dynamic. Anchors are attractive because they signal depth. Depth is rare in a world of immediate gratification. When you do not chase instant reassurance, you stand apart from the noise. Your energy feels slower. Slower energy feels heavier. Heavier energy feels important. Importance draws attention. Attention, sustained over time, becomes pursuit. But remember this. The goal is not to make someone chase. The goal is to become so internally stable that chasing no longer defines your behavior. When chasing disappears from you, it awakens in others. Not because you manipulated them, but because you stopped being movable. And in a world built on reactivity, immovability feels powerful. Now we need to separate illusion from truth, because there is a thin line between quiet power and quiet games. Many people hear everything we've discussed and immediately think strategy. They think, respond slower, reveal less, stay calm, create tension. They turn presence into performance. They try to manufacture mystery. And it works, briefly. But forced attachment has a different energy than real internal stability. One is calculated. The other is grounded. One feels tight beneath the surface. The other feels relaxed. The nervous system can tell the difference. When someone is pretending not to care, there is strain in it. The pauses feel intentional. The silence feels sharp. The distance feels like punishment. But when someone genuinely does not need to chase, there is softness in it. The pauses feel natural. The silence feels comfortable. The space feels breathable. This is where real quiet energy lives. It is not about making someone feel insecure. It is about no longer being insecure yourself. When you stop chasing because you are full, not because you are playing, your energy stabilizes permanently. And permanent shifts change dynamics in ways temporary tactics never can. True quiet energy begins with detachment from outcome, not indifference. Detachment. Indifference says, I don't care. Detachment says, I care, but I will not abandon myself for this. That difference is everything. When you detach from outcome, you stop over-investing before investment is mutual. You stop escalating effort to maintain connection. You stop monitoring their tone for hidden meaning. You stop measuring your worth by their consistency. And when you stop doing those things, your energy slows down. Slower energy feels powerful because it suggests abundance of time, options, and self-trust. The irony is that when you genuinely detach, you often become more attractive, but attraction becomes secondary because your focus shifts from being chosen to choosing. This shift is subtle but profound. When your goal is to be chosen, your nervous system seeks approval. You adjust tone. You adjust pace. You adjust personality. When your goal is alignment, your nervous system seeks resonance. You remain steady. You remain authentic. You allow incompatibility to reveal itself without panic. Resonance attracts differently than approval does. Approval creates short-term validation. Resonance creates long-term gravity. Quiet energy is rooted in resonance. It is not loud. It is not flashy. It is not dramatic. It is simply stable. And stability feels rare because most people are unconsciously negotiating for position in every interaction. They are scanning for signs, reading into responses, adjusting behavior in real time to maintain advantage. When you stop negotiating, you stop leaking energy. Leaked energy looks like over-texting, over-explaining, over-smiling, over-committing. Contained energy looks like measured responses, comfortable silence, relaxed posture, intentional speech. Contained energy builds presence. Presence builds magnetism. Magnetism builds pursuit. But here is the part most won't admit. When you truly embody quiet energy, you no longer crave pursuit. Because craving pursuit reintroduces chasing, just in disguise. If you remain emotionally invested in whether they chase, your stability fractures. You begin observing their behavior too closely. You start calculating outcomes again. Quiet power is lost the moment you seek reaction. Real power is self-sustaining. It does not require confirmation. It does not require visible pursuit. It does not require immediate reassurance. It trusts time. Time reveals who leans forward and who drifts away. And when someone drifts away because you stop chasing, that is information, not loss. If connection only existed because you are pushing it forward, it was not mutual gravity. It was imbalance. Quiet energy restores balance. Sometimes that balance brings people closer. Sometimes it creates distance. Both outcomes serve you. Because the goal was never to make someone chase. The goal was to stop chasing anyone who does not naturally move toward you. When you internalize this, your entire posture changes. You sit differently. You speak differently. You wait differently. You love differently. You no longer cling to potential. You observe consistency. You no longer escalate emotion prematurely. You allow investment to grow at equal pace. And if it does not, you do not force it. Force is loud. Power is quiet. The most magnetic individuals in any room are rarely the loudest. They are the most internally settled. They are comfortable not being the center, comfortable not performing, comfortable not proving. That comfort creates contrast. Contrast draws attention. Attention creates opportunity. But again, opportunity is not something you chase. It comes to you when you are not radiating need. So here's the truth behind the title. This quiet energy makes them chase you instantly. It does not make everyone chase. It makes the right people lean in. It makes the insecure test you. It makes the ego curious. It makes the aligned feel safe. And most importantly, it makes you free. Free from emotional bargaining. Free from over-explaining. Free from chasing clarity where clarity does not exist. Free from shrinking yourself to maintain interest. Freedom is the real magnetism. Because when you are free internally, you stop gripping externally. And when you stop gripping, you become impossible to hold lightly. That is quiet power. If this resonated, you already feel the shift happening inside you. You're not becoming distant. You're becoming steady. Subscribe to Quiet Power if you want more depth like this. No tactics, no noise, just psychological leverage. And tell me in the comments, are you still chasing? Or have you started becoming someone worth chasing? One word, chasing or becoming. Let's see who's evolving.